Studios.
Every afternoon at 4:45, Sol stood at the window of his studio and waited. The studio was a small room on the top floor of an old building, with north-facing windows that caught the light but never the direct sun. The walls were covered in canvases, some finished, some half done, some just blank white surfaces waiting for the first mark. The floor was splattered with paint, and the air smelled of linseed oil and turpentine, a sharp, clean smell that Sol had long ago stopped noticing. He was waiting for the golden hour. It came every day, sometime between 5 and 5:30, depending on the season. In summer, it lasted barely 20 minutes, the sun dropping fast behind the rooftops across the street. In winter, it stretched longer, the light lingering, reluctant to leave. But no matter the season, those minutes were the same, a warm, honey-colored light that filled the studio and turned everything it touched into something more than itself. The cracked plaster on the walls became luminous, the dusty floorboards became gold. The old wooden easel, scarred with decades of use, became beautiful. Sol had been waiting for this light for 30 years. He was not a patient man in most things. He ate quickly, walked quickly, spoke quickly. But in the studio, in the hour before the golden light arrived, he became still. He sat on his stool and watched the window. And he breathed slowly. And he let the world around him quiet down until the only thing left was the light. Today, the light came early. It appeared on the far wall at 5:12, a thin strip of gold that widened slowly, like a curtain being drawn back. Sol stood. He picked up his brush. He had already mixed his colors the way he always did. Yellow ochre, a touch of cadmium, a whisper of burnt sienna. He did not look at the palette. His hands knew the proportions. They had done this 10,000 times. He stepped to the canvas. The light was on it now, warm and even, showing every texture, every brush stroke, every imperfection. Sol did not paint what he saw. He painted what the light did to what he saw. The light changed things. It softened edges. It warmed colors. It made shadows blue instead of black. It turned ordinary objects into something that looked like memory, like the way you remember a room from childhood, all warmth and softness and safety. He painted quickly. The golden hour did not wait for careful composition or deliberate thought. It demanded immediacy. His brush moved across the canvas in broad strokes, then small ones, then broad again. He did not step back to look. He did not need to. The light told him where to go. It fell on the canvas and showed him what was missing, and his hand filled the gap, and the light showed him the next gap, and his hand filled that too. Outside the window, the street was quiet. A woman walked by with a dog. A boy rode a bicycle. The rooftops across the way caught the golden light and held it, and Sol painted them as he saw them, not as buildings, but as shapes of light, rectangles of gold, triangles of amber. The chimney, a dark line against the glow, became a brushstroke that anchored the whole composition. He did not think about what he was painting. Thinking came later. In the evening, when the light was gone and the studio was gray. Now was the time for seeing, for feeling the warmth of the light on his face, the movement of the brush in his hand, the small sounds of paint meeting canvas. The world outside continued, but Sol was not in it. He was in the light. At 5:28, the light changed. It shifted from gold to amber, and the shadows grew longer and the edges of things began to blur, Saul slowed. His brush moved more deliberately, placing small marks, adjusting a color here, softening an edge there. The light was fading now, retreating from the far wall. Pulling back toward the window, he followed it, adding a stroke here, a touch there, until the last of the golden light slipped below the rooftops, and the studio was gray. Saul set down his brush. He stepped back. The canvas showed a street at golden hour, but not the street itself. It showed the feeling of the street, the warmth, the quiet, the way everything looked at that moment like something you would want to keep forever. The colors glowed even without the light. The shapes held. The shadows were blue. He had painted a memory of the present, captured in the time it took the light to cross a room. Saul cleaned his brush. He wiped his palette. He covered the canvas with a cloth and turned off the overhead light. The studio was dark now, except for the last trace of daylight in the window, a thin line of pink along the horizon. He stood at the window and watched it fade. The rooftops were silhouettes. The street was shadow. A light came on in a window across the way, and another, until the street was a pattern of warm squares in the blue dusk. This was the part of the day Saul loved most. Not the golden hour itself, but the moment after. The stillness, the feeling that something had been made, that the light had passed through the room and left something behind. He did not always like what he painted. Some days the light was wrong, or his hands were clumsy, or the colors did not cooperate, but the act of painting in the golden hour was always the same. A conversation between light and hand, a quiet exchange that produced something neither could make alone. He descended the stairs, his footsteps echoing in the empty building. Outside, the evening air was cool. He walked home through the streets, past the windows that glowed with lamplight, past the gardens that smelled of night-blooming jasmine, past the fountain in the square where water caught the last of the sky's color and held it. Saul reached his apartment. He cooked water on for tea. He sat in his chair by the window, the same window that looked out over the same rooftops he had painted. They were dark now, just shapes against the sky, but he could still see the light on them. He could still feel it. The golden hour was gone, but it had been there, and he had seen it, and he had put it on canvas, and tomorrow it would come again, and he would be waiting. He drank his tea. He looked at the sky. A single star appeared above the rooftops, bright and steady. Saul watched it, and the star watched him, and the night settled over the city like a blanket, warm and quiet and full of the day's last light, stored in memory, waiting to be painted again.